Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a brand new year and a brand new episode of Revenue Hacks. I am your host for the day, Calvin Tilokee. You guys who have been tuning in may have seen my face once or twice before. Welcome to a new year. Today we have a great show for you. We are talking about taking the step from team player to team leader, how to take that step in your career. So I'm really excited about that. I personally have some exciting news. Since the last time you guys saw me, I've been certified as a hospitality leadership coach by the International Hospitality Institute. Thank you very much. So
Well done.
we'll be in. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited about that. It's one of the favorite things I've done in my career is to kind of help develop people and, help people like my analysts and stuff move up the chain. So I'm really excited about that. And to that effect, we are adding in a new segment that you have to stay tuned for at the end of the show for my career coaching. Instagram is called the G Spot, G's for growth. And we have a G Spot minute at the end of the show that's going to be tied into today's segment. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But we will introduce my lovely esteemed panel here today. Starting on my left, Mr. T.
Hi guys, Happy New Year to everyone. So my name is Thibault Catala. I'm the founder and managing director of Catala Consulting. We are a revenue management company based in London, and we're looking after several hotels across Europe. Happy to be back, happy to be in 2022, and hopefully this year will be a better than same as 2021, but much better. That's what I wish for everyone.
All right, and we'll continue across the top, Silvia.
Hi everybody, my name is Silvia Cantarella. I've been in revenue management for 18 years now because it's 2022, so it's a very long time. I've been working in chains mostly and over the past 5 years in independence and running also my own consultancy company, Revenue Acrobats.
All right, we will jump to my lovely co-host, Anna.
Well, yes, my name is Anna Sirba. I'm operations manager at Harbour Hotel and Spa in lovely Devon, sunny Devon today. Happy New Year, everyone, and looking forward for today's discussion.
Yes, absolutely. And last but not least, our lovely guest today, Marianna.
Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year. May 2022 indeed be the emerald year for everyone, the one we've been waiting for. I am a founder of my consultancy company, Blossom Hospitality, that I started after 23 years in hospitality leadership, more or less. At this point, I globally coach leadership, and it's combined with advisory and mentoring and growing the young talent into becoming leaders. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's important work. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from you today on this topic, of course. But yeah, we're going to get into it. And for the audience, of course, please send in your comments, questions as we get rolling here. But we'll start off because obviously all of us have taken that step, right? We all started somewhere. I started in reservations and the front desk and, moved up to director of revenue. And obviously all of you guys have taken similar steps in your career. What sort of things did you do? What sort of steps did you take in your career? And Anna, we'll start with you. How did you get to where you are? What sort of things did you do to become operations manager?
Well, I have moved around quite a bit. So I started as telephone operator at quite a big hotel. So it was big corporate hotel. Then I moved to reception. Then I moved quite quickly to supervisory position. I just love to take responsibility. So basically started from that. And then I was back and forth. So I was doing reservations. I was doing sales as a team player. And then I became sales and marketing manager. And then I was back front of house, managing front of house, managing revenue. So now I am in operations, and I would say being operational, it's both. And I think it's this mix that you have to be team player, but you also have to be in charge and you have to take responsibility. So I think my journey is around 18 years now. Wow. Yeah. So
How many years?
So 18 years in hospitality.
18. Wow.
Yeah, and I still can say, yeah. It's a brilliant journey. Quite interesting. Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah. How about you, Silvia?
Well, I started as a little internship. So I was very young. I started at a couple of hotels. And I remember I didn't know anything about the job, but for me, I have to say I had a great inspiring leader from the beginning, because I still remember the person that really was my coach at the time that I started. I was very shy. I was totally not like I am today. I think she saw some potential in me. So she really pushed me a lot in doing things that she thought I could do. So like I had to jump in conference calls, and I was still in internship. So I had to jump in conference calls, run presentations. After 1 year that I was there, I was hired. So I did all these things that were out of my comfort zone, but that now that I'm thinking back, were really some milestones for my career, because they made me confident, and they helped me really to believe in myself and always strive to get better, to learn new things. So after that experience, I started working first in the place where I started the internship. Then I moved to other destinations, covered different roles, and I came here where I am today. So I think that you have to be curious. I was very curious at that time, and also have the chance to find great inspirational persons that can guide you.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something I think we'll dive a little deeper into as we get into the show. Finding mentors and people that can help guide you is critical. But how about you, Thibault?
I mean, for me, I will share with you a small personal story that people don't know most. I started as a fisherman, so my first job was selling fish in the market in the south of France.
Wow.
And so I was 16, so I was working hard actually, like 16, 17, 18, quite early, and I was actually quite curious to see what was a different industry, what was different jobs. Moved to hospitality industry, internship, was like reservation agent for a while. I was like, so I think like what you mentioned, Silvia, being curious is very important, because you don't know where you are really good at, and you need to, at least when you're young, you need to try different things and see where you are. Actually, you may have a small edge, or what you enjoy to do, and so on. And once you enjoy doing what you do, that's where you start to be like a team leader. Then you become to be a manager, and then you can grow in this kind of area. But at first, being curious, always pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, which is super duper tough, because once you start to get into this kind of routine, you're like, that's warm, that's quiet, I like this kind of thing. And then you're like, no, let's go to something else. That's very, very tough. But I encourage any young people, or even not young people, I mean, we are all young, so that's fine, but to try new things, to be curious, and to get out of your comfort zone. That would be my number one recommendation.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely spot on. Before we move to Marianna, we do need to ask you, how is revenue management and selling fish similar? Because I feel like there's a good analogy in there somewhere.
There is a big one. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's where my love for revenue management started. But we were selling like oyster and shrimps much more expensive during New Year's Eve and Christmas. And I was seeing like the price before and after. So here you go. You see, there is a big analogy.
Yeah, there you go. Yielding.
Yielding, yeah. Or the last shrimp was 4 times more expensive than the first one. I'm kidding, but still, we have some.
I love it. Okay, Marianna, what are your thoughts on that one?
I started as bartender back in Washington, D.C. in 2000. And I think it was a series of skills that I must have presented in front of the owners that included multitasking and sort of the resilience, inspiring others, having that guest service sort of kind of in me. I didn't have to try hard. It was just kind of, I was enjoying what I was doing, but eventually I started showing the leadership skills, I guess, again, just by naturally taking ownership of situations, taking ownership of making sure that the staff around me is also fine and performing, and everybody is doing their best and owning up to what they're doing. also focused on resolution. Always, if there was guest complaints or whatnot, or if there was anything that needed to be done, it was never in my head a question of whether it's my job or not. It needed to be done, and I just jumped on it. And just doing the right thing, maybe, and saying the right thing in terms of leading by example. So during the times of confusion, or during the times of when there was no one to pull a trigger on certain decision, I was always able to, I guess, put myself into the shoes of what would I do if I really owned this restaurant? What would the guests expect, and what would the employees expect? And then I just sort of was that person that had to make that decision, or had to come up with the solution that worked for everyone, whether it's, again, guests or the team that I was working with in the absence of the leadership or management at that time. And that sort of made me feel like Thibault said, you gain the self-confidence, you start seeing a little bit of a vision for where you work, how you work, and how you approach others. You start learning the power of and impact of your approach as a person when working with others. And then just sort of going that inspiring way, being a person that people want to be around and lead and sort of follow what you're saying or doing, or what decisions or solutions you're coming up with.
Yeah, you dropped a lot of good gems there, but that last one I think might be the best, and it's such a subtle thing, is being a person that other people want to be around. So many people, and I've witnessed so many in my career, people that know the job and they have the on paper skills to take a next step, but their soft skills are completely lacking, and it'll block you so quickly if people don't want to be around you, and people kind of, well, I don't know what's the opposite of gravitate towards, but you reject people, and people just don't want to be around you. You're not going to grow. You're not going to move up, because that's such a huge part of being in a leadership position. I'll just say really quickly, for me, a lot of the things you guys said reminded me of my own journey and stories. And we'll start with the first one as far as like internships. I think that's such a crucial thing to do if you're a student now or early in your career. Do everything. I was fortunate. I went to hospitality school, so during those 4 years, we did a lot of different events. Everything from ordering food to serving to working in the kitchen and everything. There was a hotel on campus, so we worked shift. We had housekeeping. So one thing I always say, that probably the best thing you do with internships is you figure out what you don't like. You figure out what is not for you. And I learned really quickly, I was never going to work in a kitchen full time. That was just never going to happen. Me and chefs just they're just not for me, right? I'll serve, put me out front. I'll work front desk. I'll even do housekeeping. I'm not a kitchen dude. I can cook one meal for myself. That's it. The rest of y'all going hungry, it's not my kind of environment. But can you guys take, Anna, we'll go back with you. Take me through a little bit of the early phase of your career, and some of the things that you did that help you realize, what, this may not be for me, but this department is.
Well, I think I was quite focused. In the first year, I was really observing everyone. And I was quite fortunate to work like in a hotel when I had managers like from every department, and I was able to see. And there was this one lady, she worked in sales. She was like going and traveling and with the suitcase all the time. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So, and I was literally just approached her, and I was like, how did you get there? What did you do? And she was really open, and she was like, oh, well, I went through this stage and this stage and this stage. Unfortunately, she left quite early, so I was not able to to annoy her more. So I decided that this is my goal. I decided that this is where I want to go. And maybe, unfortunately, at that time, I didn't have a chance to go and work in the restaurant, in the kitchen. I didn't have my time in housekeeping that much. which now I have to do more and I have to catch up. But during that time, I was like, okay, so I'm going sales and I'm going marketing way. And I was really, really focused on that, which I succeeded. So it took me 4 years, and I got into my first big sales and marketing manager's position, which was quite tough because I was a really good player. So I was able to achieve the top line very quickly for my personal goals. But when I started to look into the big picture, I was like, oh, okay, so how do I make that person to do this? And how do I make that person to do that? Because I can do it myself, and it's quick for me to do it myself. So I can do all of their jobs on my own, but then it will take me 24 hours and I will not sleep. And to start with, I think I was working about 15 hours a day, but then I was like, no, this is not my life. I don't want to do this. So I started to delegate, which for me was a big lesson. And I was like, I have to trust you. Even if you fail, I'll trust you. So, yeah. So, and then from there, I moved to UK and I started everything from the beginning. But that was a big thing for me to actually make sure that I trust and I explain myself, and I try to explain again if it doesn't work, and I keep calm, because to take it back and start to do it myself, it was not an option because it would not work.
Yeah, that's huge. I think I broke out in hives the first time I gave an analyst a forecast to do that. It's a tough thing because you yourself, in order to get to that level, had to have done it all, and being able to trust, you use that operative word, is put that trust in another person and allow them to fail, and take that step to teach them and mold them and deal with that is a tough thing, because ultimately it all reflects on you as the department head. So that really, we could do a whole show on delegation, because that is a huge part of taking that step. And something else you said, that you could do it all yourself. It's people talk a lot about, especially in the sports world, in athletics, like how come these great players don't become coaches? Because a lot of what you do is so instinctive, right? And it's hard to teach. It's hard to teach somebody that nuance of selling or revenue management or whatever it is you do, because you just have it. And to be able to put that into words and teach another person is difficult. And that's why I think a lot of people struggle with that. But kudos to you to noticing and saying, listen, I can't continue to do this all myself. I have to trust. And that's a huge part of leadership. Thibault, we'll go to you, sir. What did you do in the beginning, internships, different departments, and how did you figure out that revenue management was for you?
I didn't. I'm still figuring out. No, but again, as I told you, I traveled quite a lot and I tried a lot of different things, and I realized that I was good with numbers, but I was as well good with people. And I found this kind of mix of the new trend of revenue manager being like at the same time people oriented, but as well with numbers. And I like this position, and I continued into this one. But as well, I've become very self-aware of my own skills. And I started to read self-help book quite early in my career, which helped me quite a lot. And one book which changed completely my approach to communication and people around me was one which was, the title is very, very weird, but it's still very powerful. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I don't know if you have read this one, from Dale Carnegie. And it changed my perspective to how to approach people and how to talk to people. I was very like, I was not smiling a lot. I was very like close and so on. But I realized in my career that if you want to first have fun in your workplace with people around you and so on, and even in your personal network and relationship, you need to be good at communication. Communication, I think, is the number one skill, wherever industry, wherever you are, that you need to develop and master. So I focus on making sure my communication skills are good. My accent is still not gone. Sorry for all of this, but I'm working on it. But communication,
we have subtitles.
Yes, subtitles. And the more I grow into my career, the more I realize that 99% of any job on more into leadership position is about people management. And if you are good with people management, with communicating clearly your what you want, what your expectation, or to be good with people around you, and people for them to feel that they are empowered by you, I think it's a work in progress that you will never be able to master at some point, but it's very, very important. So reading was one that I've implemented quite a lot, and then and applying those kind of principles, smiling more, being self-aware of my own skills and own limitation to work on it.
Yeah, that's a lot you said there, but I mean, just taking that initiative to work on yourself is something that I think a lot of people don't do, or we don't know how to do it initially. That's great. Marianna, how about you?
My first assistant manager role was actually at Mandarin Oriental Hotel that was opening in Washington, D.C. And I remember me learning the difference, first and foremost, between a manager and leader. And because you don't tend to even pay attention to leadership when you're just in that management role. You're focused on getting the openings and closing tasks done. You're focused on ensuring the guest satisfaction, all the steps of service, but you are not really there quite yet with, for example, emotional intelligence, which is not something that you get trained on. It's not like you take a course or HR gives you, a harassment course or anything that has to do with management 101. When it comes to leadership, is really growing that self-awareness and reflecting on what you've said, when you said it, how you said it, what impact it made, or did it work? do people end up doing what you need them to do after you said it this way or after you said it that way? Are you going to be the strict and have a whip, control command person, or are you going to sort of convince them or show them, or have that one-on-one conversation where you actually sell what you need to have them do, your team? So these were series of, I'd say, years and years of hard work of building that self-awareness, of building that empathy, I'd say, and compassion, of course, of adaptability into different situations. And that's all part of the emotional intelligence that I don't feel that current leadership really receives in any form of training or course. They're sort of just kind of learning that themselves. And also the resilience, and of course, building the relationships. We always focus on the guests so much, but what are the relationships that we have at work with others? What are the other departments once I entered the large 5-star hotels? How do we make it happen together? What part do I play? How do I trust others? And what resilience do I show to bounce back no matter what happens? So yeah, that was just start of my journey was at Mandarin Oriental. And I remember, of course, having a mentor myself. I was much of a go-getter. I was so eager to get everything done, and learning how to work within a hotel that had 600 rooms and just about 500 employees was one of the top lessons. Learning how to manage to work within that big environment, and like Thibault mentioned, and Anna, a trust is very important. Respecting one another, and how do you really build those relationships around you so it comes all together as one. And that kind of carries through the places later, or I worked after for the Intercontinental again in Washington DC, and grew into bigger roles, and mostly because it was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed seeing the impact and seeing the immediate success after each and single service, whether it was in a restaurant or we ran afternoon teas or any food and beverage events. It was just a joy to see the hospitality come into life when you see the happy faces of guests and having them return. So you saw right away the actual results of your hard work, and employees, clapping at pre-shift meetings, or or not being afraid to speak up. So that's, I think, the part that really made me grow. It was a series of years. It was a lot of years of working and building that emotional intelligence as a leader, and not being afraid to embrace the conflict and really tackle the situations, because that's the ownership. That's what leaders actually have to do. I used to run away from some, for sure. And I used to just
So we all did.
not own up to any dramas or not, right? And then you just realize the more you push things aside, the more they hunt you back twice and even harder. So then I just learned, you know what? Let me just tackle it when it's small, when it's the beginning of it, so it doesn't grow over me and it doesn't, blow up into anything. And all these little lessons, I guess, are just growth, pure growth. And then using these lessons as examples when talking about certain situations, and using examples of what worked, what didn't work, and why. That becomes much more growth, and sharing of that growth and that experience with others. That also really becomes much valued in the leadership roles, because you actually lived it.
Yeah, that's critical. People want to know that, I'll deviate really quickly. Like, a lot of times when I make memes about different departments, people get offended, right? Because obviously it's revenue or rev problem. So I'm in revenue. I ended up in revenue, but I've done a lot of things. But the first thing people want to, oh, have you ever done that job? You know how hard it is? Yes, I have. But that's the first thing people want to know, that you've done what they do, that you've struggled like they struggled, and then all of a sudden it's okay. We have some comments coming in from Adele. When we don't teach leadership, we're actually sacrificing guest experience, excellence, collaboration, and inspiration. Leadership is what it takes to build loyalty. I think that's obviously spot on. Adele is a genius at this kind of thing. But, you have your external guests and internal guests, and you have to be, like we said at the top, if you're not going to be somebody that people want to be around, you're not going to go too far. Your team's not going to work well. Your career is not going to go too far. But we want to get back to Silvia. You actually introduced the topic of mentorship at the top of the show. How did you go about finding your first mentor and the person that kind of helped you grow in your career?
Well, I was very lucky, as I said, because I started with the internship. So I was lucky to have a great mentor that I took inspiration from. So that really was a milestone for my career. As I said, I still think about when I'm in a difficult situation, I still think about this person, and I ask myself, what would she do? So it's still inspiring me in a way. As Anna said, I also started, actually, I wanted to do sales at the beginning. Don't tell anybody. I wanted to do sales. But then I found out that there was this wonderful world of revenue management. And I loved it because it's a very competitive word in a way, but in a positive, competitive way. Yeah, thank you. You have targets. You have to always strive for excellence. So that's something that I really liked. But then as I grew, so I proceeded in my career, and I had to manage big teams. I understood one important thing, that you can reach your performance through numbers, because you reach your performance through numbers. But in order to reach the performance through number, you have to have good people behind. So this all sums up that you need to have great teams working together and moving towards one same goal, which is different from having teams doing everything perfect. There's a difference between people that execute and people that lead. People that execute are sometimes just toxic people that just think about themselves. They have to do their job. They did this and that, and they don't walk that extra mile. But people that lead are those that engage, that are able to talk, to communicate. So Thibault, I completely agree with you when you said it's important, the communication skills, the soft skills. I think it's in the persons that we hire anyway, in every hotel I'm working for, we always look at the attitude a lot. Even if there's not experience behind, the attitude, the way they approach things, the way we see they relate with other persons is the most important thing, because you can create unity. And when you can create these great inspiring leadership teams, then you're able really to untackle opportunities that you couldn't see elsewhere. So you have people feel confident about raising their voice, about sharing their ideas, and also the mistakes are opportunities for growth. So when also, Marianna, you talked about the difference between manager and leader, which we were laughing behind with Thibault, because that's something before the show, because that's something that really comes up a lot, also on the social media. But that's exactly the difference. The difference that the manager was put there by the company, but the leader is sometimes chosen by the people. So you can have a manager which is not a leader because the leader is recognized by the team as being somebody else. So that's the way we have to work to make sure that even if we don't have all managers, but we are all personal leaders of ourselves and for the team. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to let that marinate there. That's big time. That's big time. Yeah, just because you have a title doesn't make you a leader. And
Exactly.
I think we've all seen tons of examples of that in our careers. Thibault, how about yourself? When, as far as mentorship, how did you identify a person, and what made that person want to work with you?
Yeah. Who doesn't want to work with me? That's the question. I'm kidding. But for me, and that's a bit polemic on this one, I would say like a good team player, like if you look at the team structure, is someone who is very selfless in a way and put the team before his own ego. And that's very, very important when you build a team, because people will, you need to have, it's hard to say, you need to have good talent and to have this kind of extra X factor, which will put first the objective of the team before his own ego and his own objectives. And that's very, very important and very rare in a way, because a lot of people are thinking, yeah, I want to progress, so I will put down my team members and I don't care about the team objective. If I do mine, that's enough. And that's not what will make you progress in your career, or at least actually make you lead the team. A good team first start by having a very good hiring process. I think that's the number one skill for any manager, any leaders, to be spot on the hiring process. Not to be only a manager and a leader, or manager or leader, but to be a coach. To be a coach is very, very important. And you shouldn't see the team or your team not as a family, but because a lot of people are saying like, yeah, we are working as a family and so on. See it as a professional team sport. Like when you manage a team of football, or a team in baseball and so on, that's your professional team. So if someone is on top, then you continue to build. You see which goes into the front, which one goes in, and so on. So it's a bit different than the family culture. It's more like a professional team spirit. I don't know if that makes sense. But the coaching element, I think, is very important, and putting the effort and the objective of the team before his own ego is also very important skills to have in your team. And that's where we spot those kind of good elements, only those kind of A player from the B player, because those guys will have this kind of extra factor to put the effort of the objective of the team, objective of the company first before his own ego.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of ties into what Anna was saying earlier with her example. If she was just focused on herself and her ego, she could have just done all the work, right? But is that in the best interest of the team? If she were to leave that property, nobody knows how to do anything, right? And you're supposed to leave it better than you found it. So I think those are great examples.
You can have a good one. Like I don't want to put the knife into the thing anymore. But you see, like the final of the Euro Cup with Italy and England, when the last player was running to score on the last minute, and then the Italian player just dropped the shirt from the guy. So he sacrificed himself to take the yellow card or red card, because he knew it would be a goal against his team on the last minute. And that's a kind of behavior which you said, okay, that's not ethic and so on. But he did what was best for the team, and not for his ego and for his own reputation. And so that's just kind of thing I'm talking about.
That's a great example. I don't think England's over it yet. So you probably won't be welcome to the next show. But I think, thank you for making that point and going out on top. Marianna, I know you had a few things to share with us, so I wanted to give you a couple of minutes to do that.
Yes, I wanted to really touch on the coaching part of what Thibault mentioned, because that's something that took me personally years and years to learn myself and to actually change in terms of my approach with people, with my peers, with the managers that ended up, as I grew in my career and I grew on the leadership ladder, I had to adapt and change and elevate, or I would say upskill my leadership style. Things that used to work when I was a manager on the floor with my servers or assistant managers might not work when I have to lead actual general managers, because whatever I teach them, they will then, it goes like a trickle effect, right? It goes down. That's the style that they will adapt or they will pick from me. So the importance of the leadership when I was in a more executive positions was much more important, because I was literally being the mentor without really paying attention to it so much, besides giving the advice, of course, and mentoring on a daily basis. It was what I would do and what I would say and what I would suggest that they were considering. It was a lot of learning. So I had to be careful, like Thibault said again, make it about the company, make it about the restaurant, make it about the team, and make it about that particular GM. Making others shine is what the leaders do. So many times watching, and this was kind of my internal also growth, personal growth, I would say, knowing that certain amazing things happened, and it was what I said and suggested, but I sort of just kind of mentioned it as an option to one of my leaders, and then they made it happen. Not to take that success as mine, but allow them to shine, actually made me feel so much better than taking the whole success and taking that whole glory for myself. But learning that is a process, because that's how you grow in the leadership ladder. That's how you go through executive positions, and you realize that success of others is really your success. You don't have to be mentioned anywhere. Nothing has to be tied directly to you. But if things are really working, and if the leaders in your, let's say, multi-unit operation are performing, the restaurants are performing, guests are happy, everything is happy, something is going right. And when you get the messages, leaders asking for advice, or just saying, this is what I did and I think it was right, and this is how I changed it, it's just really rewarding. At the end of the day, it's very rewarding. But going back to the coaching approach, what I've also had to grow through and experience through the difference. To know the difference, we have to, I guess the only way forward is the way through. So you have to learn and experience both ways in order to choose what works and what's the better way. So, having a control and command, I did have a couple of mentors that was their leadership style, right? They were my superiors, my supervisors, and it was just kind of my way or a highway, very controlling, very commanding style. This is what it is, deal with it, or, suck it up. Things like that. It was not uncommon. And sadly to say, it's still very common these days. That's what I fight now as coach when I coach leadership, to just completely think it from the other perspective, other point of view, and choose different approach that will bring so much more results. So coaching part was something I learned as well along the journey. Really asking questions, empowering others, giving them the benefit of doubt, sharing the ways of building trust rather than just sharing the blame. Being that facilitator, right? You're just a facilitator. You're a facilitator of other people's success, of doing the right thing. You facilitate that through questions that you ask, through giving them the power to make these big decisions. Because when they do, and they feel amazing about it, that that this is going to be the experience that will produce so much more goodness after. But teaching the leaders now, as being a coach, and mentioning all these situations sometimes to my I focus on hospitality leadership, of course, and I have a story almost on every situation that comes up, and it's actually really it's really rewarding to be able to point and show different perspectives, things that people don't think about right now, situations or perspectives that just don't come into mind just by asking the question. And then it's always amazing how it becomes that light bulb moment when my coach, even my client leader, would ask, you really didn't do much, you just used the questions. And I said, and now imagine that you as leader do use this style to make people realize whether they made a mistake or could do something better. Use this style, use questioning to make them have the light bulb moment and come up with solutions. Not just feeding them what you would do, what you want them to do, but have them come up with these solutions because it is in them. They have that potential. They just need to wake up that potential. And they need someone to facilitate that. So be the facilitator. The leaders are facilitators. They're not really just telling people what to do. They are the facilitators, and they are the ones that wake up that potential. Because if you pick the person to be part of your leadership, part of your team to begin with, it's because you saw the potential. So how are you going to feed that potential and get the most out of the potential is the most important task of the current leadership. And coaching style is definitely something that needs to be adapted across the societies, and definitely get rid of that whole control command, because guess what? The younger generations, they don't respond to control command. They don't. They'll just, okay, bye-bye. This is not the culture I want to be in.
Listen, I'm not young and I don't respond to that either.
So. my kids neither, actually.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Well, I promised you guys a G-Spot minute career tip, so it is time to do that before we wrap up. Today's topic has reminded me about a few stories, but today's takeaway is going to be prioritize your growth. All right, so we hear a lot and we've talked a lot about working for the job you want. So if you're starting out, you're going to be doing extra work in order to get that next role. So, for example, when I was an analyst, I started doing things. Oh, I'm sorry. When I was in reservations, I started doing the work of a revenue analyst, attending revenue meetings, doing daily pickups, forecasting, things like that. Things that weren't in the reservations manager job description, but that was necessary for me to learn in order to move up. You're not going to be able to do that unless you do these things and you start stretching your current role. But what I want to say, when I say prioritize your growth, you have to do the extra work that benefits you and your growth. You don't want to become a person that is just the dumping ground for things that other people don't want to do. And I've run into this with a few of my clients and a few colleagues where they become this person that they want to help out, and they're the ultimate team player. They'll cover the front desk, they'll help in housekeeping, they'll cover the sales phones when they're out, whatever it is. But then, what do you want to do? That you're just becoming a person that is, you're just known as, you'll do anything. But how is that helping you? I had one person in particular that actually needed to quit the job after a while because she was completely burnt out. Because she was just constantly doing all these other things. And I gave a personal example. When I got my first director of revenue management position, it came after a really rough patch of my career. And I knew that this was the only shot I had to really make this thing happen. And I skipped lunch for 6 months. The first 6 months, I had no idea what the cafeteria looked like. I brought a sandwich and I ate at my desk, and I just straight through because I knew I needed to learn new systems. I needed to learn how to forecast, how to be a leader, all of these things. And I just didn't have the time. But I made that personal choice. And I spent the time doing revenue management, doing what I wanted to do. And that's the key I want you guys to take away from. You will need to do extra, but make sure the extra that you're doing is aligned with your strategy and your goal. Don't just become this person that is just going to do everything and everything, because people will take advantage of that. And why would they? If Calvin's just going to cover the desk every time we ask him and leave his stuff to decide, then we'll take advantage of that, right? So be very strategic when it comes to the extra work that you're doing. All right, you can take me up big screen now. It's too early. I haven't done my face yet. I do want to. We actually overtime, but I want to leave the audience with one last question from you guys that we answer really quickly. Since we have all, progressed into manager, director, leadership positions, what traits do you look for to identify people who are ready to make that step? We'll start with you, Silvia.
As I said before, curiosity, passion, and competitiveness in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's good. Mr. T.
I wasn't ready, so I was hoping we was going to ask someone else. So I will say, as I mentioned, someone who always goes the extra step, with remain curious and wants to learn those kind of. So I will even prioritize the soft skills and the emotional intelligence, as you mentioned, Marianna, over the technical skills of this person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good. Anna.
So I would look at taking responsibility, willing to take responsibility, and as well emotional intelligence, looking after your coworkers, looking after your team, being able to be a leader and be a player at the same time.
All right, and Marianna, take us home.
I would definitely think of or focus on if the person is able to inspire others and grow others. What is the actual, in their mind, a strategy to grow others? Because I feel that we are approaching times when the generations don't stay in one position for 2 to 3 years to prove themselves. You need to have a roadmap, and you need to know precisely how will you keep that person motivated and inspired, knowing there is potential. So being able to inspire, being able to turn any situations, make the best out of it, and keep it positive, and being able to grow others while you're growing with them.
Excellent. Well, we are over time, as I said. Great show today. I think we could talk about this for a long time. This is outside of everything else we talk about on this show. I mean, this is at the core of everything. It's just being, no matter what skills you learn, or tech and revenue and all this other stuff we talk about. This is the core of everything right here. And just you guys made some really, really good points. So those of you in the audience, please rewatch it. I think there's a lot in here, a lot of notes that you could take and use it for yourself going forward. Next week, we will see you next week. We are focusing on the dorms, the ultimate leaders. Just kidding. And we'll be talking about what it will take to become the strategy leader in a post-pandemic, given all the challenges. Somehow we'll try to answer that question in 45 minutes. So make sure you don't miss that one. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.